All right, so just hoping you can hear me. It appears you can, from what I can see anyway. So we are going to continue from where we left off. Can't quite remember where, but I do believe we had wrapped up configuration management. Although I'd mentioned that I would quickly walk you through Markdown. I guess we're probably gonna do a 5, maybe 10-minute walkthrough of Markdown for the benefit of those of you that are interested. Suffice to say that I did mention, or we did highlight the fact that when it comes to Markdown, right, the only time it's going to prove to be useful. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, we can get you.
All right.
Yes,
so
yes,
I guess, thank you very much. I guess the only time, at least as far as 3020 is concerned, the only time it's going to prove to be useful is when you're creating that README file associated with your respective repository, your Git repositories, right? Although it's actually a very powerful tool. Maybe I should showcase to you how I make use of Markdown. So a combination of, we'll go through Markdown, but I just want to showcase to you how powerful this tool can be, right? So what I do myself is for the most part, I what do you call this? I create text file. I write things in plain text, right? So when I'm attending a meeting, for instance, or I'm attending a conference, an event, I'll pretty much be writing down things in using a text editor, right? So in plain text, and I use Markdown. I use Markdown for a reason. It turns out that a combination of Markdown and a tool called Pandoc proves to be extremely useful, right? So when you write content in Markdown, you can pretty much translate it into various other formats, right? So I normally will convert a Markdown document, Markdown encoded file, to PDF. I can convert it to LaTeX. If I want, I can convert it to ODT, right? Open document text here, which is a word processor, right? So that I can open it with LibreOffice or OpenOffice, for instance. Very powerful. And just to kind of highlight, I guess I will, and I've gotten to a stage where I write everything that I write, actually, meeting notes. If I'm writing a document that's, let's say, less than 10 pages long, for instance, I'll pretty much write it in Markdown. Now, I feel like I should showcase this to you. It might not be important, but I guess I will showcase it to you just because I think it's cool anyway. So if I go down to, I don't know if it's working. I can't remember. There we go. Beautiful. So if I go to Git examples, samples, and then I open the files. And what I mean here is observe. Remember the no. So if I go to this directory, right, our Git repository, if you notice, there's pretty much, well, it's a clean working tree. There's nothing that's been staged that requires us to commit. There's new file. We don't have a new file that's been created that requires to be staged and then committed. We haven't modified anything. So what I will do, right, is just showcase to you that all I can do is just, if I wanted to convert this plain text file here that we created, let's say the README file, for instance. If I wanted to convert it to PDF, it's as simple as just saying pandoc README. Is it input, output? I guess it's output. I just say README.pdf or something. I hope this works. I guess it works. And lo and behold, that directory will have a PDF document that's been, oh, come on, a PDF document that's been created, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you learn how to use Markdown, right, it will prove to be a very powerful tool because you can pretty much convert a document from one format to the other. So you notice I have a PDF document properly structured because the Markdown text that I've created there specifies that this is a level 1 heading, this is a level 2 heading, right? I can do other cool things like I can convert this to a different output format, right? So I'll probably convert it to, let's say, ODT or something. And lo and behold, I'll have a file, right? You see this readme.odt. I'll open it, and it's properly styled, by the way. You notice if I expand this thing here, each one of these styles here is recognized as a level 1 heading. I don't know if you can see this. So level 1 heading, this is normal text. At least supposed to be normal text. It's classified as first paragraph. It doesn't matter. Level 2 heading here, right? Very powerful tool. I do encourage you to invest time in Markdown. So with that being said, I hope this is I create really complex documents using Markdown myself. I mean, and you notice that you'll soon see once I just walk you through crash course of Markdown that Markdown is actually quite simple. In fact, I could be wrong here, but the sheer number of tags, predefined tags that you get to use in Markdown are far much less than in HTML. Well, it's HTML5 or something, maybe even HTML4 also. But yeah, so it's very simple, simple markup language to invest time in. And in fact, the way these markup languages work is once you understand the basics of what a markup language is about, it's very easy to pick up any type of markup language, right? So I might not necessarily know how to encode data or present content using HTML, but because I understand markup languages, I mean, it's relatively easy for me to pick it up. Now, for certain markup languages like XML, and I'm sure you've been introduced to this in 3010, slightly different, same concept, but slightly different in that you don't have predefined tags, right? So you manufacture tags, if you will. I do apologize for the noise. There's construction work going on here, and I don't think it's in this place, but I think somewhere next house or something. Right, so the question is, how exactly do you create Markdown? Well, very easy, right? I'm just going to walk you through this. And I will open lecture series number 10, I believe it was. Unless if there are any questions, by the way, with regards to what we did last time. Okay, so I've tagged this Markdown 101, right? Very easy, right? The very basic things you need to know about Markdown is maybe how to create structures, right? So hierarchical structures in your document. So by hierarchical structures here, we mean these things that you normally have in your document, like levels, right? The things that were introduced to you in EDU 1020. I don't know if it was John Shower or if it was Edward Mwalimu who introduced you to word processors. So you were introduced to the notion that you can create a complex document by styling it in a certain way, right? And one of the ways in which you style a document is you specify so-called headings, right? Levels effectively. And these headings will range from 1 all the way up to, I don't know if it's 6 or something. There's quite a number of them, right? Depending on the writing style that you're using, I prefer to stick to or to stop at 3 myself. But that's neither here nor there. It's a matter of preference. I do use a certain type of style, which is why I go up to 3. Right. So the way you do this in Markdown is you use the pound sign, right? That's one way, on most common ways of doing this. You use the pound sign. So 1 pound sign means this is level 1, right? If you have 2 pound signs, it means it's a level 2 hierarchy. So it will be marked as a level 2 heading, both in a PDF converted from Markdown and also a Word document converted from Markdown. So like I converted this document to Markdown here. Notice it's ODT file, and this is level 1 heading, level 2 heading here. You can pretty much see here. All right. So this is the thing here, right? In terms of headings. So this is your level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and I think you can go all the way up to level 6 or something as well, right? And by the way, what you're seeing on the top here, the image is how the Markdown would appear in a text file. And so similar to what you were seeing here, right? If you remember. And obviously the look and feel of the content that you're creating using Markdown is dependent on the front end editor that you're using. Excuse me. So for instance, in my case, Kate color codes markdown text in a certain way. If, for instance, I do decide to say, this is an example with 2 heading, and then I say bullets rather presented in a strange manner or something, for instance. And then I'll say these are my bullets, right? Bullet number 1, bullet number 2, right? All the way up to, I guess we'd say, bullet number N or something, right? And you save this, and what you will notice is if I create an ODT file from here and also create the PDF document from here, you immediately realize that the bullets will be created in the document, right? Oh, where is that document? It's gone now. It's here. And I think I need to format this in a certain way. I hope this works now. There we go, right? So you have your bullets here, and the usual things, right? So those things that have been introduced to you in 3010 when you're looking at HTML5, for instance, like an ordered list. So this is a list, by the way. This is an unordered list. Ordered list where you enumerate the numbers, and enumeration is quite easy. Instead of with the bullets, you can, and I'm all over the place, is simple, but I'm just trying to, so I can just number them here. Number 1, right? Then I'll just say number 2 or something, and then number N or something, right? And if I convert this to PDF, you notice that these things are going to be numbered or something. So it's rather straightforward, really. The most important things that you're probably going to find useful yourselves is so how to create like structure, level 1, level 2 headings or something. Bullets to a certain extent, I guess. Unordered list, I use these quite a lot myself, because what I like to do is I like to provide as much information as I can in that README file. And so it turns out that condensing information is usually much easier when you use enumeration or when you use lists, right? So summaries of whatever information you're wanting to convey to people. So very trivial things to do, really. So I don't know, besides enumeration, I mean, I don't really can't think of anything else. I guess you might want to invest time in learning how you create the equivalent of your A tag, right? So like if you're wanting to create a link, for instance, so I'll just say links created differently from HTML. E.g., I'll just say I want to create the University of Zambia, right? So this thing in square brackets is going to be, you notice that the text data I'm using color code things. The thing in brackets is going to be the text. So when you're using HTML, you remember that you have your A tag like so, right? Your reference, and then these crazy things you've been doing, right? So this would be the link like http www.unza.zm or something, and then you have the text in between the elements, right? So the elements in between is where you have your text. This is the link, unza, right? In Markdown, on the other hand, the link is going to be placed in these square brackets, and then the link, right? The hyper text reference, right? The href is going to be in parentheses, and so I just say, I guess HTTPS I know, but you know, and if I just save this, hopefully it's going to render this as a link somewhere in the PDF document, and so open this, and you notice that I guess you can't see here, but you notice that if I move my mouse, it actually comes up there. I guess I should have color coded it somehow. I don't know why it's not color coded, but if I move my mouse there, it's a link, right? So it's pretty powerful stuff here. I do encourage you to invest. I've included a link because this is not really a major focus of what we're doing. I have included a link to Markdown, something to kind of help you get started with Markdown. I do encourage you to invest time in that. Look at the link. It's a very useful skill to have, right? There we go. Oh, so if I convert it to an ODT file, you notice that it's even underlined, it's styled properly, right? Which is beautiful here. So I don't know. I mean, I thought this was a pretty much good enough introduction to Markdown. You will find a link to, I guess, a website for the person who invented Markdown, right? So if you go to Daring Fireball, this link here, in the bibliography slide, it's hyper reference number 4. So link number 4. I do encourage you to go there. You will find a very nice write-up on how you can do fancy things like presenting tables, for instance, right? Because you have to think about using Markdown from the perspective of how you create these fancy styles in these other formats, right? Like when you're creating a Word document, for instance, how do you create a table? How do you come up with a color or something, right? But I mean, in terms of the basics, I do believe, I guess that should be, I don't know. I think that's sufficient. I don't know. Was there a question?
Yeah, yes, Doc. I wanted to find out. Can you get me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Yes, like, is there? Do they call them tags or what? That you use to showcase that this part is for code. Let's say you want to present something, then you want to put a section where you're going to say a portion of code that you want to display to.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, so the syntax is quite simple. Like if I wanted to present, thank you. Look at this, right? So code, there's markups for everything. So there are markups. These, by the way, these things that I'm showcasing, asterisks, these are special meaning in Markdown. So these are these are what you might call your tags implicitly, right? So if we wanted to make it bold, what do we do? Simple, bold, beginning asterisk, closing asterisk. Here, no, sorry, I think it's underbar. Here's the thing. In WhatsApp, do you know that you can use Markdown to format text in WhatsApp? Yes, you've done this before, right?
Yeah.
You actually use Markdown. That's how powerful Markdown is everywhere, right? So you can do that. But code has I think it's is it 1, 2, 3 backcourt or something. I guess we could say public class ICT 3020 or something, and then just so this would be formatted as code, right? Public static void main. I don't know. I guess you'd say the usual stuff people do, right? String args or something. I don't know. Yeah, the usual what Pierre taught you was hello world or something, right? Hello world. I don't know, with an exclamation mark. Let's see if this should work. I think it's backcourts, I believe. I think so. So if I convert this to a thingy, I should be able to see the source code. You notice that it's actually formatted using what font face is normally used for code. You notice that it's different, right? It's formatted to showcase that this is actually source code. And in fact, I do believe there's an option where you can even color code these things, like you do in these other fancy markup languages like LaTeX, for instance, right? So I don't know if this was what you were asking here. So kind of single quotes or something. Backquotes, rather, 3 backquotes. Also, I think, I've forgotten it. There should be a short form for a single line of code. Is it? Also, by the way, on Stack Overflow, I think some of these tags, you use them on Stack Overflow as well, I think. Is it a Q? I don't know. I've forgotten. Anyway, but if you go to this link here, you should be able to, you don't have to master these things. You go to the syntax and then you should be able to find different ways of, code blocks. There we go, beautiful. So code blocks, I can't see, where is it? Code block. It's not here. Anyway, but yeah, so I do encourage you to look into this. Very useful skill to have, very simple to learn. As with most things in life, if you really want to learn how to do some of these things, you really want to practice. And nice way of practice is to actually do things, right? So there we go. Are there any other questions that people might have? about Markdown, no, very simple to. Can't remember where else you have Markdown. Markdown is all over. Oh, Wikipedia, right? If you use Wikipedia, like I do myself, Wikipedia. If you use Wikipedia, you actually, if you're a Wikipedian, like I'm a Wikipedian myself, I edit articles on Wikipedia, and you want to edit content, it's edited in Markdown. I'm going to showcase I haven't added anything to, Zambia in a long time. I see it's changed now. But if I log in here and I say edit, I can edit without logging in really. If I keep me logged in, please, for 365 days. If I log in, what you notice is if I click the edit button here, what I will see is, lo and behold, surprise, surprise, Markdown. Do you understand? This is a table here. This is all Markdown. I'm going to scroll down so that you see some of the things in markups I was talking about. These are all tables here, but if I scroll down, this is just an alternative syntax for Markdown, by the way. If you don't want to use the pound sign, use the equal signs for the headings. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares, right? So this is all Markdown here, right? I'm going to go to where you have links here, I guess, for you to see. Like you can't see. This is all Markdown, though. So Markdown is all over. I guess one would argue, I would at least, that Markdown is the future. I think it's here to stay. One of the major selling points for Markdown is its relative ease of use. Do you understand? Ease of use, right? All right. So if maybe we can continue our conversation, but I wanted to find out, have you noticed any similarities between Markdown and HTML5? How has been your experience like in HTML5? Oh, heading, this is the thing, right? What would you like? This for heading number 1 or this? Heading number 1 is this. This is the major selling point for Markdown is you do things rather quickly. Things that you would spend a lot of time on when you are using LaTeX or when you're using what do you call this? When you're using HTML. I'm going to showcase something to you, another type of markup language, right? I'm going to showcase LaTeX, right? It's usually meant for document formatting. And if I can open up a more recent document here, pretty gruesome stuff here, but I want to showcase how you create sections, right? So a level 1 section in LaTeX is created like this. This is pretty interesting. All of these are all of these things are used to do the same thing, right? So in LaTeX, in Markdown, this would be heading 1, heading 1. In HTML, this would be your heading 1. You'd write your heading 1 like this. In LaTeX, you'd say section, and then you'd say heading 1, right? So different, the output is going to be the same in terms of presentation. If we were to export this to PDF, for instance, we'll see the same thing, but it's just that the syntax that you get to use is different because these are different markup languages, and these markup languages are meant for different things, right? Like LaTeX, for instance, is specifically meant for document processing, right? For typesetting. This is for typesetting documents. I mean, HTML is for creating web documents. Markdown, on the other hand, is multi-purpose, right? You can do so many different things with Markdown. I can convert this text here in Markdown to LaTeX code with ease. I think I can do it directly from here. Let me just showcase to take or something. It's there, right? So I've just converted it, and then I'm going to open the LaTeX document, which is here. If I open it, what you'll notice is those tags that I was talking about. You see this? Section, right? These tags are automatically converted to LaTeX or tech code, right? So I'm curious, how has been your experience like with HTML5? Is it nice or something? Easy, right? I don't know. All of these things are easy. I don't know why we do these though. But all right. So if I hope that was a good enough introduction to Markdown. I called it Markdown 101. If there are no questions, then I guess we're going to proceed and start our discussion of testing. Now what we're going to do with testing, I guess, is just set the stage for what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But before we start, I think I have just a few random things at the beginning that I didn't want to talk about prior to talking about Markdown. You should ask yourself this question before you sleep. Why is it called Markdown, right? I don't know. Maybe you mark it down or something. All right. I do apologize. I want to start off with an apology. We shall not be able to cover some of what I consider really interesting topics, like especially the part to do with experimental software engineering. But I think that I'm going to be somewhat involved with 4014 next year. And I do hope plans don't change. If they don't, then I'll definitely sneak in aspects of what we were meant to discuss in 3020, in that particular topic in 4014. Because it turns out one of the reasons why we wanted to discuss experimental software engineering is to give those of you that are going to be working on projects that will involve developing a software artifact an opportunity to learn exactly how you go about evaluating, not just evaluating, systematically evaluating software artifacts, prototypes, right? And you discover next year, if I'm involved with you, that it's a pretty trivial process. It mostly involves you measuring those ETs we spoke about. Usability, right? Ease of use, user experience, all those fancy things are really, really interesting. I find it interesting because there's swaths of those sort of things in my PhD thesis. But anyway, so I do apologize that we won't cover some of these things in this course. I mean, but it's not my fault. Maybe it is, I don't know. There's only about a week remaining. So next week is the last day of class. And we've scrapped off Friday because it's the 6th. This is when we have a test, obviously. I would like for us to have our epilogue class on Thursday, right? And then we'll have a test on the 6th itself. So that leaves us with just Monday and perhaps a weekend or something. So what I plan to do is between today and tomorrow, maybe we can wrap up testing and then maybe use one of the days for the weekend or perhaps Monday to just give you a sneak preview of what we should have discussed, right? Just to I guess, give you a head start or something in the event that you develop an interest in some of these areas. Again, I do apologize that we won't be able to do that. With that being said, again, another reminder that we have a test on the 6th, which is a Friday. It will be open for 24 hours. So beginning midnight all the way up to 23:59. If I were you, I would make sure that I write this, I prepare for this. I don't think that we need anything like, what do you call this? Like a revision or something, revision session. But if you want, maybe we can do this over the weekend or something. Just to give you an idea of what to expect in the test, just a quick rundown of what we've covered after we wrote test number 1, essentially. All right, unless if there are questions, I'll jump into testing. Are there any thoughts or questions? Comments? Okay.
So
Yes.
or Doc, I usually forget.
So it's the same. I don't think there's a difference though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yes, yes, sir.
Like the coverage for the test.
Yes, everything covered. Oh, thank you. Everything covered in the course, with the exception of what what was in class theory test number 1.
Okay.
But to be fair, the test will not include lecture series number 11 because because of the time actually. So it's everything covered with the exception of everything covered until lecture series number 10, excluding content that was in the class theory test number 1.
Okay, so that's 6 to 10, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Right.
I don't know, I don't remember, but yes, if that's true, then yes.
All right.
All right. Any other questions? These are important questions. Thank you for asking that question. Okay. All right. So I mean, our discussion is going to be centered around these 5 themes here, essentially. And I think today's session will just set the stage. So we'll just look at validation and testing. And what I want to do in the first part of this lecture series is just to remind us of something we discussed during lecture series number 2. If you remember, lecture series number 2 gave us a broad overview of what the SDLC is all about, the software development life cycle. So the different phases and the range of activities, the broad spectrum of activities that are conducted in those phases, right? Just so we can better understand what we are going to talk about after that. And then I've clustered these slides, by the way, are based on, for the better part, with the exception of just a small portion, they're pretty much based on the recommended text here by Ian Somerville, right? So I do encourage you to go through that book to reinforce what we're going to talk about here. But the idea here is the discussion is going to be centered around the different types of tests that we tend to conduct as part of testing, right? So you realize that there are tests that have to be conducted as you are developing the software. There are tests that have to be conducted once you're done with the development and you're wanting to release the software. I don't know if you guys have ever been invited to be a part of, oh, can you do some beta testing? Does this sound familiar? Facebook does this a lot. Before they roll out a particular feature, and I'm latching onto Facebook because I know most of you are familiar with this. Before they launch a feature, they'll conduct what's called beta testing, right? So they will probably expose it to a few users, and depending on the reception that they have, then they'll roll it out or something. So it's part of release testing. And then for most of your custom software, you want to conduct so-called user acceptance testing because you want to ascertain the fact that the software conforms to the user requirements. This is not Facebook here or Google Chrome where you have no client, right? If you're creating custom software, like someone approaches you to say, can you please create a student information system for our college? And they do that a lot these days. I don't know why they do that now. There are plenty of open source software tools, right? But can you please do that for us? And you collect your requirements. At some stage, you're going to have to conduct user acceptance testing, where you engage the user to figure out if what was developed actually conforms to their requirements, right? Good stuff. So it's going to be clustered like that. And then at some stage, we're just going to sneak in so-called test-driven development, right? So this notion of you conducting tests as you are developing the software. So the testing informs the development process, essentially. I guess one would argue that this is pretty much part of so-called Agile, right? I would have loved for us to discuss Agile in depth, though, but it's hard sometimes. Anyway, maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe we can, for some of these things, I've been thinking maybe during the study period, I think we will have, maybe we can have a class or two or something. That would be nice, right? I think so. Once we write the test, maybe we can have maybe 3 sessions just so we can discuss the more important. Agile is important, in my opinion. I don't know, but I mean, certain things we touched on, like so component-based development, for instance. I mean, we looked at that at some stage, but I think we needed to really discuss Agile development in great depth. And the number of interesting tools that I really would have loved for us to really experiment with, but maybe a bit of theory over the study period might be nice. I don't know, strange. But anyway, so yeah, just a bit of introduction here to remind ourselves about what testing is all about, obviously. Now we talked about this in lecture series number 2, like I said here. So the whole point of, remember, this discussion is part of validation and verification and validation, V&V. So requirements elicitation, system design or requirements engineering, system design, implementation, testing, and then that's it, right? Evolution, right? So we're at the stage where we're looking at, it's pretty much testing, but it's verification and validation. And the whole point of verification and validation is you want to ascertain the fact that the system does conform to the specification. And this case, this specification will be laid out in your SRS document, right? And also, you want to make sure that it conforms to what the users said they wanted, they wish the system to do on their behalf. Right, so think of this in perspective of user goals, right? What they would want accomplished as they're using this system, right? Incidentally, all these things are expected to be in the SRS document. And so what you do as part of system validation is nothing more than just you're checking and reviewing you're checking and reviewing processes, right? Already established processes. And then conducting systematic system testing, And what you do when you're testing the system is, in part, you execute the system by exposing it to predefined test cases, right? So if we were to think of this from a perspective of a very simple feature that most of us are familiar with, like a login feature, what you would do as part of the testing process, system testing process for that particular feature is you would come up with test cases like, oh, what happens when we feed it the wrong password? We feed it a non-existent username. We, all those random things, right? So things that it's a known knowns, right? You know exactly how the system is expected to behave if given the right things. You know, or at least you expect it to behave in a certain way when it's exposed to erroneous input, like a wrong password, for instance, right? So essentially what you're doing is you're using these test cases to ascertain the fact that it's going to behave how you expect it to behave. And it turns out that testing is one of a number of activities associated with verification and validation. I mean, some of the things we're not really going to talk about, like inspection, for instance. We're just going to focus on testing because it turns out it's one of those popular activities anyway. It's one of the most commonly used also activities. So in terms of testing, really, you pretty much test the system from so many different aspects here. So from the perspective of the various components that comprise the system, right? Remember when you're building a system, it will be composed of these small building blocks, right? And you can view these building blocks from as low a level as your typical function, right? So a function is going to be a part of a class or something, and then the class is part of the package, and the package is part of, I don't know, the system as a whole or something. Maybe that system is going to be a part of a bigger picture, right? It needs to be integrated with yet another system. So it turns out that in terms of testing, what you focus on is component testing, system testing, right? So component testing where you test the individual components, system testing where you test the system as a whole. And again, I guess as part of system testing, you have things like integration testing where you try and test the likely outcome of integrating the system with third-party applications. So in instances where you are latching on to application programming interfaces, for instance, or web services, right? You want to test that integration is seamless at least, or it works as expected. And then finally, there's an optional part, an optional because this is well applicable for custom software. So this would be like acceptance testing, right? So like I said, I mean, in terms of component testing here, you're more really testing the individual components, functions, objects, classes, interfaces, abstract classes, all those fancy things that were introduced to you in 2010. I don't know if you did touch on testing. Did you discuss testing in 2010, I wonder? Unit testing, you should have.
No.
Yes, you did, right?
No.
Oh, okay. I don't know. Unfortunately, I'm not going to talk about it. And unfortunately for you, right? This is the thing here. I'm just going to assume you discussed this. You should have discussed this because it turns out that most of these languages will come. Oh, what happened there? I need to replace it. What happens is most of these languages will come with so-called test frameworks. And most of my examples latch on to JavaScript because, I mean, I fell in love with JavaScript a while back and found it to be quite useful. So a typical programming language, you typically have frameworks that you use to conduct unit tests. These are automated tests. You don't manually test things, right? So all those things like equivalence tests and partition testing and whatnot, you don't do them manually. There's an automated process. So the example I was talking about where you're trying to test if the login component works as expected, you don't do that manually, right? I mean, you could do it manually if you want. Good luck wasting your time there. But there are frameworks that you use, right? Smart people already did the dirty work for you. All you have to do is just invest time and learn how to use these test frameworks. A bunch of them out there. There are Java frameworks, PHP frameworks, JavaScript frameworks like Jasmine. I've used Jasmine a lot. I did poke around Mocha a while back, but really, I'm not very familiar with it. But I have intimate knowledge of Jasmine here. But anyways, so testing, right? This is making sense here, but but component testing, where you are testing these individual components. And it turns out, right, some of this testing is you could view it as you're developing software. I think you might implicitly do tests, right? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're writing a function and you go to the terminal, right? And then you run, oh, let me call Java, right? Oh, Java, and then I'll say ICT, and then, oh, I'll say Java, ICT. Does it work? It works. Although it's a retarded, oh, sorry. It's a very bad way of Java ICT. It's a bad way of testing, but you're testing these smaller components implicitly. I think you've done this, right? When you're implementing a function, for instance, I'm sure you do tests, is it? You just don't write code. But so that's a mind. So you do that, right?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, of course. I mean, so that would be the manual way of testing. What we're saying is you can automate that whole process. And one way of automating that whole process is if you come up with appropriate test cases. And I think we have a dedicated session where we get to discuss how you come up with tests. I don't know if we do, how you come up with test cases. It's simple. It's not that hard. So the thing with tests, imagine a situation where, let's say you are creating a function. Think about this for a second. And I'm going to just pause and talk about something random here, off topic, just so I can prove a point, right? Let's say you're doing a test. You created a function to compute percentage of ICT 3020 grade, right? So if you get 20 out of 100, what is that, an A plus, D plus, or C plus or something? If you think about this for a second, what you notice is part of the test is you're going to have to, if you have a value n, you're going to have to, one way of testing if your function works is to expose it to all the potential values associated with this percentage computation. Now, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to 100. And in fact, because you are testing this, you have to think about this for a second. Because you're testing this, you have to also test the things on the extreme end, because you can have some character, use your application, and here they are, right? They will just type in, no, I want to check the grade for -50. Are you crazy or something? Well, maybe you're not crazy, but maybe you're just curious, right? So you'd have to test all these things on the extreme side of 0 and the things that are beyond 100. But you know that the percentage is ideally supposed to be between 0 and 100. So it turns out that there's techniques, right? Equivalence testing or partitioning, where you test the boundaries, essentially. Because it turns out that when you're testing code, the problematic things are associated with things on the periphery, the things on the boundaries. So things that are maybe somewhere close to 0 after 0, things that are close to 100 after 100, things that are in between an A and an A plus. These are problematic things, like, oh, if I have 88.9 and 89.1, right? These are the things that are going to be problematic for you. So there's a way in which you partition the test cases so that you just sample out a few values that you test, right? These are exciting things. I don't know if you're going to use them in the projects you're working on. No, but definitely in 4014 next year. All right. So, and then there's I don't know what's happening here, but almost done. I guess we're just going to go up to the stages, I think, and then we'll continue tomorrow or something. And then there's a system testing where you're testing the entire system as a whole. So think of this from the perspective of what you're doing as the various groups, the projects that you're working on. If you were working in such a manner that you have different people working on separate components, at some stage you would need to test the system as a whole, like the makeup requester. Does it function? Like the Unza ICTA app, does it function as a whole, right? This is system testing. And then finally, user acceptance testing or customer testing, where, and this is mostly applicable to custom software, not off-the-shelf software. Although for off-the-shelf software, maybe you have alpha tests and beta tests or something. So this is user acceptance testing, where you expose the system. After you do your system test, you tell the client, we have deployed this application for you to temporarily use. And then after some time, you shall tell us whether you've noticed any anomalies with the system or something. Is this making sense? So just to wrap up, I guess, today's session here, in terms of like a visual representation of what you're doing here, the different types of tests, right? Acceptance testing, user testing, system testing, which includes integration testing here, subsystem testing, which fundamentally involves testing different subcomponents or subsystems that you have associated with the system you're developing, and then component testing, where you're testing modules or various smaller functional units associated with your system, functions, classes, right? Interfaces. And you notice that the various inputs are coming in from the things that we discussed here. It makes sense that your acceptance test plan is going to get input from the system specification and the requirement specification. And then you use that as input to your acceptance test, right? So the tests are going to be based on these two things, acceptance tests, or user customer, what we're calling customer testing here. And then the system test or system integration test will get input from the system design and the specification. It should be a requirement specification. Ignore this part where we have fragmentation of the requirement specification and system specification. In our case, we have these two embedded into one document, the system requirement specification document. Is that once everything is done, it feeds into the overall service that the system is supposed to provide to your customers. Very important. In certain large entities, organizations, there are people with hopefully the skill set that you will acquire by the time you're graduating that are employed to just test software, right? I do have a friend of mine who worked as he used to be called a quality assurance engineer, right? Quality assurance software engineer or something. And he used to complain a lot that his job was boring. All he used to do was go for work at 8 and test software or fragments of code that were being developed by software developers. But hey, he got paid at the end of the day, I suppose, and he was happy. At least he spent more than 2 years there. Listen, if there are no questions, then I guess we'll call it a day or something, and then we'll continue our discussion tomorrow morning. Yes, tomorrow morning at 9, I think. Unless if there are questions. No class, Jim. What? I don't know if that's a question or a statement, Mangala. I don't know if it won't be. Listen, here's the thing about what I'm suggesting over the study period. It's not going to be part of the exam. It's not going to be mandatory, just like all the courses that Lightning is involved with are not mandatory. So you are free to attend or not attend, I guess. Don't know. I know I'm going to attend myself. I'm really looking forward to attending. But it's probably going to be just a few sessions anyway. All right. Bye-bye then. If there are no questions, there are never questions in this group. Thanks.
Thank you.